are back live. It's been a while. Welcome to Blacklisted Radio. I'm your host, Doug Owen, and I am feeling better. Glad to be back. It's been 2 weeks since we did the last show. So much has happened. It's the 11th day of December 2016. I'm your host, the senior editor of blacklistednews.com, where we counter fake news and corporate-controlled narratives. And, the slogan for the website and really the show, or our moniker maybe, is over the target, under the radar. Not so much anymore. Out there, and we're going to get into fake news. If you haven't heard enough about fake news, I have an opinion and a vested interest in the truth. So it's one of the many reasons and many topics that we're going to cover tonight. I do want to hear from you guys. It's been a while. 800-313-9443, toll-free number to join us. You can also go to the website, blacklistedradio.com. That is the mothership, the hub, where you can join the interactive discussion alongside myself and others. You can also tweet at the show. BLN Radio is the handle. And, of course, you can text me directly, 512-222-3067. You can leave us voicemails as well. The last 2 weeks, what has happened? Actually, a lot of things have happened, but the majority of the news cycle has been dominated by really two things that are really just one thing, and that is fake news and possible Russian involvement in fake news. So last podcast, we talked about Prop or Not, the inclusion of blacklistednews.com, the website that I own, in their list of 200 websites that are useful idiots and or actively being paid Russian propagandists. So, of course, it's nice to be on the list. You want to be invited, and it's nice to know that you're somewhat relevant. So, I kind of gush that people would think that, the Blacklisted News and these other alternative news websites, including really big sites and really a left and right focus from some of the websites, kind of shows how it's nonpartisan, but people that were critical of U.S. foreign policy, looking at the Russians, a lot of the coverage of what's happened in Syria in a balanced and apportioned way when looking at U.S. interventionist plans and Russian interventionist plans in Syria. Of course, Hillary Clinton has a daughter too, and she came out this week. If you haven't heard, she said that one of the many reasons that she lost the election is because of fake news. We have a big problem out there with fake news stories. Now, of course, Pizzagate wasn't even a thing when Hillary Clinton was running for president into the election. If anything, I think the biggest issue she has is within the FBI. And there's some pretty interesting tie-ins that we'll discuss on this. But she says she was done in by fake news. WAPO, the Washington Post, which was the propagator of the fake or the list of fake news websites, really, in their own fake news story. So this from the Washington Post. The CIA has concluded in a secret assessment that Russia intervened in the 26th election to help Donald Trump win the presidency rather than just undermine the confidence of the U.S. electoral system. Now, you think about that. I mean, is it that I didn't believe that my vote counted, or that the people that were at the head of these, major parties, the Democrats and Republicans, deserved my vote? 46% of people abstained from voting in the United States of America in 2016. And so, I mean, it's a very, very small amount of people that supported Trump and or Hillary Clinton, a quarter of the population. And really, when you look at their numbers, I mean, almost side by side, as they do the recount that Jill Stein has been pumping for. It's pretty funny to see the results. Not a lot of conversation about those results, actually, in not more votes for Hillary Clinton, but less, which is laughable, made up of Bushism. It's laughable, and it shows that, I don't know. I've talked often about the integrity of the voting system itself, and I think a lot of people have put that away because they're just one thing that this Trump election win did was, I think, restore the faith in people voting once again in a lot of people's minds. But when your candidate wins, you're not too concerned with voter fraud. The Democrats, Jill Stein, very, very concerned about voter fraud because they lost. And that's a cycle, that's a pendulum that swings both ways. So anyway, I looked at this conclusion, and of course the big story is that Trump is not listening to the CIA. He doesn't believe their assessment on Russian hacking. And there's actually a big diversion between what the CIA and the FBI has concluded. Now, the FBI has, they're prosecutors, so they actually look at facts and something that you could prove in the court of law. If you're going to make a case against Russia, you need provable facts. Whereas in the CIA's assessment of Russian interference, Russian hacking, and the like, it's more, we're just going on our gut here. So, you have to look at Russia itself being a target, the alternative media, the alt-right, and other groups, 4chan, Reddit channels being blamed for a portion of it. The blame is to go around, and Hillary Clinton has plenty of people on her side that are gung-ho, war hawks, ready to pin whatever they can on Russia, quite honestly. I mean, it doesn't matter if the facts are there. But so people are really freaking out in media about Trump kind of dismissing what the CIA report said, actually in one of the most ultimate rebuttals ever. He said basically that he didn't believe the CIA highly secret assessment on Russia, and that these are the same folks that brought you the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And actually, funny enough, if you look at high confidence assessment, that's what they keep. If you put high confidence assessment into Google right now, you will just find tons and tons and tons of articles with Russia being blamed by this CIA assessment. So I really was unusable. So I just put minus Russia into the Google search, and one of the things that came right up was the government's assessment of Syria's government using chemical weapons was a U.S. government high confidence assessment by the CIA. Also, the pre-war intelligence of Iraq's weapons of mass destruction were a quote-unquote high confidence assessment of this situation. And you will find all of the CIA blunders and maybe some of the places where they're right about certain people or certain situations and these different assessments. Would you be skeptical of the CIA? And I think that the reason, obviously, that there's so much blowback about this is because the CIA basically wants to handle the president. Trump coming in with his own advisors, with his own ties to the FBI. I mean, one of the real reasons, if there is one, the one that is the smoking gun reason that Hillary Clinton lost the election was because Comey, FBI director, reopened his investigation into her emails just, 3 days before the election. I think on that Friday, prior to the Tuesday. So a few days before, reopened the investigation. And people thought, well, there's not a lot to like about Hillary, number one. unless you're just a diehard fan, a psycho fan. There's plenty of those people, and let's not even talk about all the people in media, Hollywood, and the rest that were trying to conservatively, skew the election. When it comes to U.S. propaganda, militarized media, not a big deal. There was an assessment, sidebar, but relative to the discussion, is that 70% of all mainstream media about Donald Trump was negative. And it went back. I saw this great, look and review of media coverage of Donald Trump over the past 18 months. And there were Hollywood reporters that were first, clinging onto the story, TMZ, because, real pundits, real media, real journalists couldn't fathom something like a Donald Trump presidency ever happening, and would not even consider it. And I mean, if you look back at Reagan, you had a guy who didn't have a lot of political experience, and he was an actor, a Hollywood elite that became really the face, even today, of the Republican Party. So anyway, the really interesting piece that I read from the New Yorker talked about the divisions between the CIA and the FBI over Russian motives. Of course, if you think about this, Donald Trump is, this is the media that brought him the presidency. So it's, and if the Russians did help Donald Trump become president of the United States of America, why would he go after them? Now, this is where people like John McCain and Hillary Clinton and Lindsey Graham and the rest of them are just chomping their teeth together in anger over this. And I imagine the CIA is not too thrilled with the dismissal of their intelligence reports and not being taken seriously. Not being able to handle the new president and actually having him out working outside of all of the kind of controlled normal things that a president does. Going and sitting with the media and letting them grill you, and he's not going to do that. He's going to directly talk through his social platform. He's going to tweet all night long, sometimes every thought. He's not anything like the rest. Henry Kissinger, mind you, I have to play some Henry Kissinger because, well, I enjoy listening to him. He sounds so creepy. He's 92 years old, and he knows one thing, and that is that he wants the ear of Donald Trump, and he has to decide, Donald Trump that is, of how he wants to reign over the international order, aka New World Order. So this is him at, let's see, at this Building of World Peace Conference. Yes, the Nobel Peace Prize Forum in Oslo, Norway. So AP had a report. RT actually published this, and they're one of the few news outlets that find Henry Kissinger's discussing of an international order relevant. Of course, because he's it's so relevant to Russian relations, and he's been at it for a long time. We could talk about the resume of Henry Kissinger, but he respects the personality. He said that we've never had this kind of personality before. Blah 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 blah. Tell him, Henry. They're dragging him up there right now. Sorry, I didn't clip this.
No doubt.
No doubt.
The president-elect is a personality for whom there is no precedent in modern American history. And his campaign included rhetorical elements, challenging patterns, heretofore considered traditional, before postulating an inevitable crisis An opportunity should be given to the new administration to put forward its vision of international order.
International order.
The international
world peace and what you do to bring it. So there's a little bit from Heinz Kissinger talking about the unprecedented personality of the U.S. president-elect. Gotta admit, I mean, reality TV star, a hugely, bigly personality like himself. It's different. It's definitely different to see that. And one of the things that he's doing while he talks about draining the swamp is bringing in business magnets, the top brass at every institution that you can think of. Goldman Sachs, bankers, you name it. And some of the people are pretty astonished at some of the appointals. We'll talk about those, or the appointees to his transition team, which includes some pretty wild names, which initially bothered me, but now I think about it a little bit more, and I'm like, maybe. Definitely not the academics from the Brookings Institute and other career politicians that have never had jobs in industry. Now, I mean, we could talk about the people themselves, but when you have somebody that's highly successful in a real industry that is regulated, whether or not they're good or bad, that's pretty relative. But if they're successful when it comes to government programs and being in charge of those programs, you would think it makes sense to have people that have actually successfully built systems within the constraints of the U.S. government. But anyway, so there you go. Now you have this just barrage of people talking about different ways to control media and how that must be done. From Hillary Clinton to now disgraced NBC fake news journalist Brian Williams, who's now on his new crusade to rid the world of bad news or fake news, which is pretty funny. I don't tweet a whole lot on my personal BLN radio handle on Twitter, but I saw this meme that I thought was just perfect. And I could probably put out war reports and a lot of other academic information, and when you put it on Twitter, you get almost no response. Put out a meme about Hillary Clinton, something that's mean about Hillary, boom, you'll get 55 to 100 retweets real quickly. So anyway, it said, this meme, it was just a picture of Hillary Clinton. It said lied about being under sniper fire. Where was that at? Colombia? No. But lied about being under sniper fire, worries about fake news, those kind of things, and people love them because it's funny to I think most of you listening when you hear about this. We retouched that CNN great video of during the first Gulf War, of all of these fake news sets with fake palm trees, and this leaked video where the reporters are, laughing and putting this set together and pretending to be under fire, and then showing a lot of the blooper reels, order me a cheeseburger. It's priceless. So, I laugh at it, but when I start seeing, this push to, make news illegal, and ultimately where I think they want to go with that, and that is licensing broadcast and news journalists. It is somewhat sobering, no doubt about that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other side. Your phone calls are welcome. 800-313-9443. It's Blacklisted Radio. So anyway, I've been on the fake news kick like most of you. Can't get away from it. Fake news everywhere, the discussion of fake news, what to do, what to filter, how to do it. Should we have a Chinese-style internet here in the United States of America? The Russians are pushing for a total takeover of content and information distribution to their people. Russia just signed, Vladimir Putin, that is, on behalf of the people for their own good, a new security doctrine. You should check that out. So, this is one of the big topics because the mainstream media is failing. Its credibility is waning. People's interest in the information that they are bringing forward and their corporate-backed, corporate-sponsored news it's dying. There's so many other mechanisms, so many new ways to get information for the people that care. That's just for the people that are interested. It's much harder to spoon feed people a narrative, and it's just not working. That's why we see this hyper freak out by the mainstream media, by people in these institutions, old institutions of control, media, Hollywood, which has had just this dominating impact in our lives. It's just a fact. Donald Duck taught us why we need to pay our taxes to the IRS. I mean, over the last 60 years, we've just had this collective conscience and collective experiences through television by only having 2 or 3, 4 maybe television choices. So people all people my age that are almost 39, 38, they remember Full House, right? It was just this horrible sitcom. We all share that because even in the age of cable, there's just such a limited choice. So anyway, I was listening to Alex Jones's InfoWars show because somebody I'm a fan of, and his podcast, Adam Curry, who does the No Agenda podcast. It's one of the few that I listen to out there because I find it very valuable. He was actually being interviewed by Max Kaiser, who was in town this weekend, and anyway, they both ended up on the Alex Jones show. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting was they were talking a lot about fake news and propaganda, and that led into the discussion of Voice of America, which is the U.S.'s outlet for U.S. government messaging, the CIA, their narrative for the rest of the world. And they broadcast this all over the place. 3 years ago, during the national reauthorization of the National Defense Act, the U.S. government, because of online media and the inability to control online media, made the Smith-Mundt Act, which is a law that prohibited the CIA or the U.S. government propagandizing the U.S. People with their targeted lies and disinformation campaigns. So NDAA, not that a lot of people talked about it at the time or were aware, honestly, it excluded or got rid of this act. So we have active propaganda being used against us, and that is a fact. I mean, when we talk about fake news, $500 million the U.S. government spent and the British government spent with a PR firm creating fake jihadist videos. And they say, well, we can justify that. We put them online. We put them on Twitter. Then we catch the jihadists, that kind of stuff. And, you can soft pedal propaganda as much as you want, but there's no bigger purveyor and propagator of fake intelligence as part of psychological operations than the U.S. government. Russia may be number 2. So anyway, they were talking about this, and Max Kaiser said, yeah, Voice of America came to me and said that they would pay me to basically have an on-air hissy fit and to denounce RT. He said that, that he was a Wall Street banker in the 80s and has lots of money and just didn't need it, wasn't going to do it. But Adam Curry asked him, was that the same time that chick from RT was she quit on air? And I remember Liz Wall. So anyway, Liz Wall has become relevant again. She was on CNN as part of a panel denouncing Russia as this organization, or RT, Russia Today, is this Kremlin-sponsored Putin power to Putin type propaganda, and that it was designed to undermine U.S. institutions, including this institution that is the media. Now, I would consider myself to be part of the fifth column. Not Twitter verified. Don't have the credentials. I don't have a press pass. I don't have any of those things. And to be able to propagate information on the internet today, you don't have to. That's one of the things that they would love to kill or love to regulate even further. And he expounded on how in Britain, BBC, the British Ministry of Truth actually tells you what you have to say, certain things that you can't talk about. I mean, it goes on and on. Now you have an ex-U.S. ambassador to Russia calling for the labeling of RT, Russia Today, and Sputnik news agencies as quote-unquote foreign agents. One of the things I'll say that Liz Wall really hit the head of the nail with was this idea that, Russia has been, propagating RT for quite some time now, but people thought it was, funny. Yes, the Russians have their own news channel. Ha, ha, ha. We'll take their money and broadcast it on cable news networks. Now, I guess because they find it to be more effective, or more and more people are listening to some counterpoints. Of course, it is hypercritical of the U.S. government. Just like U.S. NGOs, which are non-governmental organizations, all of those, NED, National Endowment for Democracy, other George Soros groups, all of those try to undermine the Russian and the Chinese and other state-sponsored governments. That's what they do. That is what happened with the support mechanisms built that culminated in the coup d'etat of the Ukrainian president just a few years ago. You had literally Victoria Nuland on the ground with Senator McCain giving cookies to these rioters that ultimately ousted the president, who went into exile, who had to be basically airlifted out. The assassination of his life was on, and Putin, extracted him. On and on. So we can talk about some of the fruits of the Hillary Clinton brain trust and the CIA, who is probably, slighted. And they're looking at different ways to control this. The Congress, Obama, everybody wants some report on Russian meddling and influence in U.S. elections. But, these are just dirty tricks that are not unique to Russia. But because of all of the dirty laundry, because of all of the scandals at the DNC within the Hillary Clinton campaign, because she targeted and went after people like Vladimir Putin viciously. This may have been some of they may have enabled, may have been a conduit for information. I wouldn't doubt that. But, truth should never be something that undermines, criminality, the realization of criminality. That doesn't undermine these institutions. It's the criminals that have been given, carte blanche, that have, that are, licensed to kill. It's because they have found their way through cronyism, corruption, scandal into these places of power. That's why people are freaking out. Like, oh my God, how much power have we given to the executive branch? See, it was fine when Obama was droning people, and it was fine when Obama was listening to your phone calls. Now that Donald Trump can do it, ooh, now that he has the power to assassinate people, even U.S. civilians, people start to scratch their heads. This doesn't seem right. This guy scares the hell out of me. So, there you go. Sore losers. Anyway, I think it's brilliant, but to infuriate everyone, Trump has picked the Exxon CEO Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State. Oh, this is crazy. In a move that is certain to infuriate those who see Trump as nothing more than a puppet of the Kremlin. Moments ago, NBC reported that Rex Tillerson, CEO of ExxonMobil and late entrant into the Secretary of State race after his meeting with President-elect Trump past Tuesday at Trump Tower, has been picked by Trump to serve as the Secretary of State. Now, people think, wow, that is crony-rific. And it probably is. I mean, putting oil executives in charge of government. What's funny is that if you think that government has not been under the control of oil executives for a long time, let's just harken back. Let's go back in time. Let's think. Dick Cheney, he was the vice president, and really, there is consensus that he was running the White House for 8 years while W was doing coke and drinking too much and burbling around and we can all, Republican, Democrat, we can all agree that Dick Cheney was the man. People love him. I could just go through a list of them. Donald Rumsfeld, Searle Corporation, on and on and on. So oil explorers being part of government is nothing new. Is it pretty crony-rific? I think so. But think about this. Who has the credentials and who has had international diplomacy, probably to a degree that nobody else has, other than an oil executive? I mean, this guy, he's worked with Vladimir Putin. He's worked with Russia, China. I mean, he knows all these people. And he knows all of the power brokers in those countries, because guess what? You know who the power brokers are in China? People with oil. In Russia, yeah, same thing. Gas, energy, Mongols, or the richest of the richest people out there, beyond even banksters, maybe. So not shocking. Probably does have a lot of real world experience and understands why we have the wars that we do. John Kerry, he probably understands, but not nearly as much as somebody like Rex Tillerson understands what U.S. objectives in Iraq, in the rest of the world, especially the Middle East, with the Russians, with the Chinese, as we move into the 21st century, really should be. Somebody like this guy, he already understands why the U.S. wants to carve up Syria. It's not because of international rights. It's not because women are being mistreated. It's not because they're beheading Christians and all of the other things that you would think humanitarily on a human level would be reason for intervention. I mean, sometimes that happens. Sometimes we do good things for people that need help. Not to say that everything the U.S. government does is self-serving for those corporate masters, but history serves as a good game plan for what has happened so far here in the 20th and now first century. Trump has now picked wrestling magnate Linda McMahon to head the Small Business Administration. Linda McMahon, a professional wrestling big boss and member of the World Wrestling Entertainment family dynasty, has been named to serve as the head of Small Business Administration in President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet. Billionaire lady. She knows how to make money. She knows what works. She knows how to advertise. She knows how to get people in jobs. Nancy Pelosi, I can find a lot of people that have never had jobs in government that think that they know how to make jobs. Now, this lady, I don't think she's good or bad or evil or any of these other things. Does it seem crony-ish because they probably gave a lot of money or are good friends to Donald Trump? Yeah, it does. But that's exactly how people, and that's what's so funny to me, is that people are so shocked. You don't think that the people that supported Barack Obama and his personal friends became cabinet members? That is absolutely normal. It's so normal that it's only abnormal because the media is so excited about it. So anyway, you have that. You have somebody who was actually in HUD, Dr. Ben Carson, somebody who actually grew up poor, in charge of HUD. Seems crazy. He's a doctor. Why would you put him in charge of that? I don't know. Somebody that's actually been there that understands. Somebody that was able to put on his own two bootstraps and go from a family of, what was it, crazy number, like 10 or 16, was born to a poor mom and become a surgeon, a neurosurgeon. He might know something about pulling yourself out of poverty, turning yourself around and helping people do that. So the more I look at the Trump-elect, the swamp being filled with gazillionaires, the more I think, well, it kind of makes some sense here. Would you listen to the CIA? No. I might just to entertain them so they don't kill me. But would you trust anything that came out of their mouths? Absolutely not. Would you trust, RT over CNN? The obvious answer there is maybe, possibly. But, there are plenty of other real systemic issues that we have in this country. The American dream is collapsing for young adults. There's a new study that says the odds plunge that children today will earn more than their parents, or the odds plunged for that to happen. So, I think about it. I was just telling Ken before the show, my wife is expecting our second son any moment now. We are past the 37-week mark, so very excited and terrified. But I think about these issues because I have, two children that will be competing with not only technology, but a world that values human labor less and less, and creative entrepreneurs more and more, people that are flexible and new, more, for lack of a more grim word, more dynamic, people that are willing to work in a service-based economy, for themselves. My parents' generation, people went to work for a company, and there's a good chance that if they worked there long enough, they would have a pension. And they had, these safety mechanisms. You could put money into municipal bonds and never have to worry. Muni bonds were impenetrable, and you would always get a return. You could save up $100,000. You could just put it in a bank, and that would be good to go. So it's something that's very concerning to me, and it's also I say this all the time. It's a symbol of my optimism that we can have, at least for some people, a bright future and for the human race overall. I really do believe that. It sounds like it's not much of a message to sell fear and doom, although that works very well. It's very effective. The mainstream media and even parts of the alternative media capitalize on people's fear. But I look at most of these things that are coming to light, most of the discussions that are being had. At some point we had to have the talk about fake news. At some point, the American people and the people of the world are going to have to decide what kind of internet, what kind of freedoms we really want, and how much tyranny we will take, and how much control, is acceptable. That's has to happen at some point. So when I hear Hillary Clinton pouting about fake news and how she was done in, it's to be expected. When I listen to all of the talking heads on these shows that are becoming less and less relevant, and they're losing the control as the gatekeepers to the American population. Fake news, and wanting to control this market of free ideas, quite literally. It's to be expected. And if you weren't expecting that, then, I mean, that's part of it. I mean, that's why I think a lot of people like this show, and it's because you're probably really ahead of the game, and you have one thing on your side, and that is insight. And the people that are freaking out, that can't believe it, that are so emotionally invested in Hillary Clinton, or the idea that the Russians decided to make Donald Trump president of the United States. Those people, they feel that way. They're being psychologically victimized by the media, and that is the big takeaway for me. Anyway, speaking of pensions, we should just talk about this. Dallas Police and Fire Pension Board ends run on the bank, stops $154 million in withdrawals. So if you got money in the pension, plan, you are, you're probably looking at your body of work and the money that you put into this system, and wondering, will it be there tomorrow? Will it be mismanaged? And will it be bailed out? When you look at the size of Dallas and the huge tax base that it has, it's hard to believe that they would be having problems with pensions. And this is just a bell cow for what is to come. I think to a lot of people that are retired or soon to be retiring, and the reason I think that people need to understand that is because one of the biggest problems is that people are no longer retiring, or at least a lot of people cannot retire. So you have a huge amount, more than ever, of people that are 65 years plus that are now competing for jobs that quite literally 16-year-olds used to be able to compete for. Unskilled labor. People out there in the retail markets or seasonal retail markets. That's why everything looks great right now, because it's the holiday season. We'll see how this year looks. I mean, and what a dismal way to gauge the success or the economic prosperity of this country by any other metric than looking at how much crap Chinese slave-made junk that will be broken in just a few weeks after receiving it, then being hauled into the landfills. Other than Chinese toys, Christmas is just a gluttony of spending. It's a time where people, will make purchases and go into debt when otherwise they would not. Where rationality kind of goes out the window to be able to bring joy into people's lives than with presents. And of course, that's an economic indicator of where we're at today, which, I mean, there should be so many other things like the labor force and jobs, real jobs, not just, these skewed reports. You talk about fake news. The jobs report, that is fake news. That is, it's a fabricated, curtailed number that they come up with that just has no basis in reality. It's beyond what has happened with Pizzagate or anything else. That's one of the other memes or one of the other things that you're hearing a lot about. Conspiracy theories are dangerous. Then they're pointing at this failed actor Welch, who for whatever reason decided to go down to Washington, D.C. and visit the Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria where allegedly, according to some, there are children being traded to the elite in the basement. It's not verified whether or not they actually have a basement, but anyway, pretty suspicious and weird story. All of this, and this guy apparently popped off around. And they're like, well, see, there's real world things that can happen with online conspiracy theories. You should be scared, and we should be regulating them. And I think, this guy didn't kill anyone. Scared some people with an assault rifle, but that is nothing in comparison to the amount of people that have died because of lies that were spread by the U.S. media in the lead up to the Iraq War, to the war in Afghanistan, following 9/11 directly. I could go on and on and on about all of the things that have come out about fake news. We learned that all of those color codes that we used to hear during the Bush era, the different national security level alert codes, orange, red, we're in threat level red, were all designed to be used for political gain for the Republicans and George W. Bush. Anytime there was huge amounts of criticism of the Iraq War, we're bailing out. We're not going to give money to the military. We got to red alert people. Well, it is now part of the record. It's not fake news. It has been confirmed by the quote-unquote mainstream media that was all hooey. So, not to mention all of the narratives. I mean, it's worth mentioning that the U.S. Pentagon spends millions of dollars every year writing. I mean, they have paid for writers that pay movies and give them financial funding like Transformers to put in U.S. military narratives, things that are pro-U.S., pro-military, on and on and on. The U.S. government pays for these military ceremonies at the NFL. By the way, in 2008, the NFL was bailed out. It's part of the the package to restore America. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. That's cronyism, my friends, right there. Propaganda cronyism. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Your phone calls are on the other side. Don't go anywhere. 800-313-9443. It's Blacklisted Radio. All right, welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio, final segment here. Let's go to the phone calls directly. There's phone lines directly. Let's go to Andy in Texas. Andy, welcome to Blacklisted Radio.
Hey, sir. Nice to talk to you tonight.
You too, Andy. What's on your mind?
Well, here we have this so-called black president, Barack Obama. Now, when he was elected in 2008, I owned a bar in South Seattle. I'm a white guy. I owned a black nightclub. I turned a bar into a nightclub, or a tavern into a nightclub.
Okay.
And this young Jeezy guy, he came out with a song, "My President is Black." I had to play that for weeks on end because all these black folks were happy that their president was black. I'm just kind of wondering if they would put up with a song that says, "My president is white." Because this white guy is going to do more for them than that black guy did in his entire 8 years in office. I mean, Donald Trump has done far more in the last 30 days since he's been elected than Obama's done in 8 years. And not just for the black person, but for everybody. And this is just incredible. This whole scenario that we're going through, where we don't have any control over what's going on. You and I, we didn't ask to be born here. We had to come in here and try to navigate ourselves into this little world that these people put together for us. And I kind of resent that because, you know what, I would really like to make my own world. If I had my way, I'd have a farm and I'd be, making my own food, growing my own food, having my own cattle, and I'd be bartering with my neighbors and things would be fine. But we've turned this into a bureaucracy that nobody can navigate through. And
well,
then,
sir,
when
I appreciate your
Biden's
phone
having-
call. We only got a moment, and I got a lot to respond to here. But you can do that. Don't let the bureaucracy, the red tape, all the things that are designed to keep you from being happy and being where you want to be. Don't let them do that to you. That, living well is the best revenge. When it comes to, whether or not you can have a song about a white president and being happy he's white, absolutely not. It's a double standard. You can't have white pride. If you had a tattoo that said white pride on your back, you would be considered a white supremacist. But you can have black pride or Latino pride, Mexican pride. You could probably have a focus group on your campus, college campus, for any demographic of people that can be prideful about it, except for Caucasians. Same thing with the Germans over there in Germany. If you're, the one thing that scares everybody is this idea of nationalism, actually caring about the state, which is, to me, it's always been this weird push-pull. We have to give money because we care about the state and it's to help people in our country. But at the same time, if you're really pro-U.S., if you're pro-state or pro-country, whatever, nationalistically, then that's a bad thing. That means you're a zealot. That means you're a racist, or that you want to cook people in ovens. And that's what it'll eventually lead to at some point, sir. If we let the alt-right continue putting out Peppy the Frog memes, sooner or later, people are going to be rounded up and, chopped up and turned into Soylent Green or something. I mean, that is the kind of asinine stuff that you're going to hear people saying. And it just shows you how, little I think people are able to relate to what's happening around them. Hopefully we're navigating through some of that and countering that fake news narrative. And once you realize what fake news really is, it's quite enlightening. You'll be a lot less mad. Yeah, Andy, continue your dream. Don't let the New World Order, Barack Obama, or Donald Trump slow you down from that. Guys, I will be back next week. Thank you so much. Go to blacklistednews.com and blacklistedradio.com. Exclusive content, an interview with Craig Simpson I did this week for his show In Search of Wild America. Will be there after the show, so check that out. A lot coming your way in the next new year as we roll into 2017. Guys, thank you so much. Take care.